difficult.
Sorry, I meant to do that before.
Just so you know, Captain, you're being recorded at this point.
Got it. Got it.
I see Joanne has a question.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Thank you. Welcome, Captain Martin. I'm glad you mentioned Columbus Park. I'm the president of the Friends of Christopher Columbus Park. And last Sunday morning, when the gardening volunteers were out there, and I did file a 311 after, they found 11 needles in the garden that's on the walkway. We call it the Crescent Garden. We've never found that many before. So what we need is police to go through at night, not just, you know, I've seen more activity during the day and bicycles, but really patrols and to walk through, not just drive through sporadically. I don't think there's enough of that. And the needles are, you know the homeless issue. Thank you for addressing that. But I hope you could step up patrols for evening.
Yeah, ma'am. Now, I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you seeing people at particular times, or are they just in there randomly? Like, are they always in there between 2 and 4, or is it just they random?
This would be at night. This is the middle of the night, after 10 o'clock. And the night, Saturday night, was cold and rainy, and so there weren't many people in the park, I'm sure. And that would be a perfect kind of opportunity for them. If it's a nice, beautiful, sunny evening, it would, or warm evening, they wouldn't be there.
Are you finding that they hang around the park all throughout the night, or is it just random times they pop through and they transit through?
I'm glad to say I have no idea. I'm not there at 2 in the morning.
Okay.
I don't know.
If anyone knows, please narrow down a time frame for us. We'll make sure we'll get some active patrols through there at those times. But if there's no set time, we'll get some people randomly through trying to bring along, or see if we could take any enforcement action.
I think that would be perfect, random. You don't want anything consistent, but Long Wharf and Columbus Park would be deeply appreciated.
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Joanne, I have a question for you. Joanne, does the Marriott Long Wharf have any cameras that point out toward the park?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
And you wouldn't see anything anyway. I'm talking about under the trellis area.
Oh, right.
And then in the rose garden.
We can
lock the rose garden, but the other one.
Joanne, we could talk offline where we could maybe come up with something to have the department maybe get a camera on put a camera up on something already established out there where we can zoom in and monitor from, the station, where we could periodically check and then assign patrol based on that. So we could touch base and see if we could figure out a way to get a camera up there, one of our own.
Yeah, I don't know why there's never been a camera in Columbus Park. There's been no effort by the city to do that. So, but thank you. I will be in touch and maybe we can get together. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Thanks.
Does anyone else have questions for Captain Martin? Anybody either on Zoom or in the room?
Okay. Well,
anybody online? Well, Captain, I want to join everybody. Just thank you for helping to keep us safe, and now to welcome you into these meetings. We really appreciate your attending and giving us the latest news on what's going on in the neighborhood. So thank you so much.
Great. No, thanks for having me. And I'll get to as many of these as I can. Unfortunately, sometimes I have 4 or 5 a day and they overlap. So I try to, be fair and jump on the one I missed a month before, but I'll do my best to be on all of them. And also you can reach out to the CSO office, Joanne, if you want to link up with me, we could have that meeting and talk about the cameras. So feel free to reach out to Officer Ciampa or Sergeant Chevrette, and then we could meet up. I could come see you, come to the station, or we'll get that discussion going.
Captain Martin, I just want to add that we really appreciate Officer Ciampa and Sergeant Chevrette attending these meetings, which they do regularly, and participate in the group. So they're really, Boston police are really part of our Wharf District community. So please extend our appreciation to the other members of the force, and particularly those two. Thank you.
Great. And just so you know that they're both on this call right now as well. And so I'm sure they'll appreciate hearing that, as do I. And I'm lucky to have them. So really appreciate it.
And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You got it. I hope everyone has.
Go right ahead, officer.
Okay, so we want to get to.
Yep. So we have a couple new members. I know one of them is present here in the room, and then perhaps the other one is on the call. I'm not sure, but sitting right across from me is Chris Crompton, who's the general manager of Old Town Trolley Tours of Boston. And Chris, do you just want to say, introduce yourself, and maybe we'll get you on camera here if you say a few words.
Well, I don't need to be on camera, but hi everyone. It's great to meet you all. You know, Old Town Trolley has been a part of the Wharf for, it's actually coming up on 40 years now. It'll be our 40th year next year since Old Town Trolley started. So I figured, seeing as we're here pretty much every day of the year, it was about time that I started to attend. So thank you all. It's great to be here.
Well,
thanks.
Welcome. Yeah.
Thank you. And I wonder, is Patrick Lee on the call from State Street Provisions?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, Patrick, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Patrick Lee is on the call representing State Street Provisions, which I'm sure all of us have had lunch or dinner there numerous times, and one of our neighborhood favorites. And Patrick, you want to say just a few words about Provisions?
Sure. For those of you who don't know, we're a contemporary American restaurant at the corner of Atlantic Ave and State Street, right on the corner there of Long Wharf. We've been open since December of 2015. The years have gone by quickly, but we're thrilled to be a part of this neighborhood and excited to be a part of the Wharf District Council.
Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Patrick, we're excited to have you and also Old Town Trolley, Chris, for joining us. And Patrick actually came before the Wharf District Council in 2015 when he was opening his restaurant, needing a letter of support from us, which we happily provided. And we look forward to continuing the neighborhood relationship with both of these businesses. And we want to thank Matthew and our membership team for putting a lot of effort into talking about the Wharf District Council to potential new members and folks.
It didn't take much effort with these two, because they're both very, very well-known presences in the neighborhood. Also, I want to check, is Matthew Knowlton on the call? Matthew Knowlton, are you on the call?
Yep, I'm here as well. Thank you.
Oh, hey, this is also Matt Knowlton. I don't know if you prefer Matt or Matthew, but Matthew Knowlton is with Boston Duck Tours. And what is your title there, Matt?
I am the Director of Operations at Boston Duck Tours.
Excellent. Well, Boston Duck Tours doesn't need much introduction here, but do you have a few words to say about anything new going on there, or about your role with Duck Tours?
No, I've worked for the company for about 24 years now. I've been doing this role for the past 5 or 6, and I appreciate you guys inviting me to the meeting. We've been very busy and we've been getting busier and busier down in that area, so it's really become a very large part of our business. So it's nice to be able to relate and hear from everyone else down there.
Great. Well, it's nice to have all of these new members here, and I think one thing that they all share in common is an interest in the Coastal Protection and Resilience Plan that the Wharf District Council and Derek Anderson here from AREP has been working on, and Derek is going to be presenting on that very soon. That is a matter of critical importance that affects all the businesses in the Wharf District. Before that, though, we do have one piece of business, which is an application or a request. You want to talk about that, Susanna, from Trade Restaurants?
Yes. Excuse me. Leslie, are you on the line on Zoom? Trade Restaurant at 540 Atlantic Avenue is requesting support from the Wharf District for a entertainment license for a live DJ. DJ only. There would be no dancing, no interaction with patrons, no seats will be removed or rearranged, and no changes to operations. So it's strictly for ambient music. Now, Leslie Hawkins, who I'm not sure why she's not on, but I don't know if there's anyone from Trade on.
Is anyone from Trade on the Zoom call?
Well,
there's actually a question from Heidi. Is this inside or outside live DJ is her question.
It would be inside. But unfortunately,
yeah, I'm sorry that no one's on the call. It's I guess I'm just questioning if it's ambient music that it has no interaction with the patrons. There's no dancing. Why is there a need for a DJ?
Yeah, I think we should table this until we have a representative who can explain to us what the application is about.
I would agree.
These are not mail-in kinds of conversations. We need to understand it better, I think.
Very good.
I do have her number. I could try to see if she, for whatever reason, is going to make it. She may have thought she could come later.
Yeah, well, we could take it up later if that's.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you're going to turn this over.
Yes. So next on our agenda is a presentation by Derek Anderson of ERA, and he's going to be presenting the visuals and his explanations about the project, the final report, which was just released recently. And I would be willing to bet that everyone in the room and on the Zoom call at least was able to give a cursory look at the report. It was really quite detailed and in depth. And I think what Derek, maybe you could describe what you're going to do tonight. Obviously, we're not going to go through every aspect, but
I was thinking a page by page. No. We'll give the high level walk through. So we'll give an overview of some of the reasons for the plan quickly, a little bit on some of the key approach issues that were considered in the process, and then we'll really go through some of the more illustrative plans, and I'll describe some of the improvements that are proposed. And then we'll open it up for conversation. If anyone has any questions, if anyone's interested in a little deeper dive on any particular issues, we can certainly do that.
can everyone hear Derek okay on the call?
Yeah, it's fine.
Excellent.
Great. For that, I will just share my screen.
Perfect.
All right. So we'll jump right in here. Obviously, you all know the area of the Wharf District, but this is a resiliency plan. I just want to highlight not just of the waterfront, but for the district as a whole, where there are many properties and assets that we're looking to protect with a flood protection system. Just quickly, I know I don't need to go into depth on the why, but just quickly to discuss some of the motivations behind the project. As you know, Winter Storm Grace in 2018 caused some flooding during a storm surge event, causing flooding throughout State Street, Long Wharf, Atlantic Ave area, including MBTA's tunnel system there at Aquarium. And it's not just those storm surge events, it's also high tides are coming over. We're seeing more and more frequently flooding over our harbor walks and into our property areas, even during sunny days during our wicked high tides. So what that means on the storm surge side, we produced this map showing the flood extents in the Wharf district. And this is in 2030, based on the most recent modeling by Woods Hole Group that the state is using for all of their planning. This is a 100-year or 1% storm event. This is basically that winter storm Grayson, which previously extended flooding down Long Wharf and up into Atlantic and up State Street. So it is looking to push out even further into a lot of areas.
Can you explain, this was one of the most striking visualizations in the report, but can you describe for a layman like me, what is meant by a 1% storm surge?
Yeah.
Like, what is that defining exactly?
It's a great question. It's an unfortunate term that us techie engineers have used way too often. What it means is there's a 1% chance of this event happening in any given year. So that doesn't mean that you've got a 1% chance of it happening in 100 years. That's a 1% chance in a given year. Those probabilities add up. So over, say, a 50-year period, you've got something like a 39% chance of this happening. So we typically look at, with big infrastructure projects, a 50-year design life. So this kind of event, you're almost at a 1 in 2 chance of this occurring over that period, that investment period, if you think of it in those terms.
Thank you.
And then this just shows in 2070, so it extends out even a little bit further and really starts to impact more areas where water can get into things like the Central Artery Tunnel, the Silver Line, as well as the infrastructure that's impacted even earlier in the previous slide. This is not produced by our plan, but just to show these are images produced by Boston Water and Sewer showing what an even a more frequent event might look like. This is a 10% of, a 1 in 10 chance storm happening in 2070. You can see the flooding throughout, Faneuil Hall area and State Street. And as I mentioned, it's not just storm surges, it's also tidal events. So, some of the numbers we've been looking at as recently as 2021, we were experiencing 7 days of flooding during sunny day events, during high tides. We're currently looking at, just a few years later, looking at 11 to 18. And by 2050, we're looking at 50 to 70 days of tidal flooding in Boston, is what we're projecting. So these are frequent events that aren't just with storm surges, and will be a lot of nuisance flooding that we need to deal with. The assets in the Wharf district, the things that make, some of the things that make the district just a really great place to live, work, and play are shown on the plan. Each icon here is an asset that's impacted by that flooding by 2070. So we've got waterfront transportation in terms of MBTA systems. We've got ferries, we've got tourism. In terms of all the various water boats that Matt and his team are running and everybody else out there. We've got marinas. We've got the Harbor Walk itself all at risk if we don't have a flood protection system. We've got the aquarium. We've got MBTA's Blue Line and Silver Line. We've got the Central Artery Tunnel. Bringing people into and through our, the heart of our financial district, as well as many historic assets and public assets throughout the district.
And Derek, I think it's fair to say that that was the basis for coming up with the $3.9 billion of infrastructure that is at risk and is what we're trying to protect.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the numbers that the city previously produced, we've looked at, what's at risk here. Yeah, it's $3.9 billion worth of assets, and that's not even getting into some of the economical impacts or all the myriad.
Folks
Okay.
in the room,
It's back
we're
now.
no longer hearing you.
Yeah. Oh, I just heard you.
Yeah, the room is quiet.
Yeah. That's so strange. Norm, are you still there?
I am, but I'm not in the room. I'm remote.
I know. I'm just gonna call Suzanne. The room audio is gone. The room audio is gone for all of us. Tell Doug. Just tell Doug.
And make sure we're muted. I just see.
Joe Christo just posted that there's a team in the room working on the problem.
Yeah.
Everything.
All right, we got some audio back from you guys.
Okay.
Try your. That was just a speaker. All right, we're giving this a try. Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, we can. That's fine.
All right, I'm gonna have to
just do it off your laptop.
Mark,
yeah. Turn the owl off and just use the audio on your laptop, perhaps.
I think the owl
literally no one touched the thing and it just randomly started to.
Yeah. Yeah, we heard the Zoom thing sort of go weird. Let me see.
Yeah, so I'm gonna actually, we'll use Derek's audio. Yeah, but I called in.
Okay, I just muted the Leventhal room. Go ahead, Derek, you should be good.
My audio speaker. Yeah, leave that. All right. How are we doing now? Can anybody hear me now?
Yes, that's good.
All right. We can hear you.
Go ahead.
All right. Sorry for the technical issues there. We're back up and fully running. We're getting the screen share up here again. All right, so where we were at, and apologies again for that. We are really zeroing in with this project on the engineering components of a flood protection system. So we're looking at the locations and elevations and types of strategies. We're really trying to make sure that we have an engineered solution that addresses all sources of flooding and is going to work and is continuous from end to end of the district. And very importantly, has the broad support of the community here. So that's part of this meeting, as well as many, many, many meetings we've had with many of you here in the room and on the call, and many others. To be clear, it's our assumption that there will need to be significant additional community engagement for designing the public realm that will sit on top of this flood protection system. So you're going to see some images in this presentation that show different types of surface solutions. In terms, really, we're identifying opportunities, but a lot of the types of public realm improvements at the surface on top of the flood protection system, we do recognize will need additional community engagement and design. All right, with that said, let's jump on here. So again, just a big thank you to the Climate Resilience Task Force. Great number of folks with a great amount of information and knowledge contributing to this project. So thank you all, as well as many other stakeholders who've been involved in the process. I won't hold here for too long, but just fantastic to have a wall of text when we're talking about the people that were engaged in this process. I usually hate wall of text images, but so in terms of the general process here, the Wharf District Council established a climate resilience task force that really helped to manage the process. Then we dove into due diligence, collecting data. We established some evaluation criteria, which built off the public engagement the city had done with their Climate Ready Boston work, as well as additional engagement with stakeholders throughout the district. And we used those evaluation criteria to rank and identify preferred flood resiliency strategies, from which we created a series of alternative designs. We presented those alternative designs to various stakeholders, and with their input, developed a preferred flood protection strategy end to end of the district. We solicited feedback from many stakeholders at that point on that preferred solution. And the result of all that community engagement is reflected in the final design plans and report, which we issued a couple of weeks ago. We're now moving forward, really engaging the community in continued conversations about this flood protection system and what that means for the Wharf District and the surrounding communities. We're looking to continue to coordinate with funding and implementation agencies to keep the momentum going, really transition this to something actionable, and then support neighboring communities with their resiliency planning. A great amount of information has been learned through this process that we're looking to share with other communities, as well as coordinate with the abutting neighborhoods. As I mentioned, we built off the city's prior work, the 2016 Climate Ready Boston report, 2020 Coastal Resilience Solutions report, which really laid out a lot of the foundation for this, for what we're able to do here, identifying design flood elevations of a variety of different types of locations and different types of strategies that could be applied, from which we were able to narrow down to our single solution, as well as the Wharf District's previous public realm visioning process in 2019. We built on the city's design flood elevations, and this graphic just shows, what we're up against, really. So really what this shows on the left, that gray line down at the bottom is the ground elevation of the Harbor Walk. The orange line represents what we need to protect to. We call this a design flood elevation. This is consistent with the city's recommended minimum design flood elevation, what they call a target design flood elevation. In a lot of cases, we've got a lot of ground to make up between the ground level at the Harbor Walk to that elevation. You can see that red line there at Rose Wharf indicating 5.5 feet. The green line just represents, we want to make sure anything we put in the ground as part of this project can be raised to a greater level of protection as seas rise in the future. And that green line represents how high we've made sure we can relatively easily bump that level of protection up to if we need to. Over on the right, we've done the same graph, just showing instead of the ground elevation of the Harbor Walk, we're showing the first floor elevation of the building. So that property owners along the waterfront can get a sense of, if we were to do something at their building, that's the level of protection we need to achieve. These are the evaluation criteria that we've created, again, building off the city's prior work, which was really rooted in community engagement initiatives, identifying preferences and priorities from the community for how to rank and prioritize different resiliency strategies. We really looked at, this was really crucial to the process. This was something that we worked closely with a lot of stakeholders on within the district to gain support for this process before we really started. This is really the decision-making for when you look at one strategy and try to compare it to another. How do we do that in a transparent, in a repeatable fashion so that we're treating every property fairly to the same metrics? So with this, we're able to rank different types of strategies for things like effectiveness, feasibility, and adaptability, as well as social equity and access and environmental and additional benefits. Again, this is a really nice tool that I think a lot of other districts can use and build upon that we've developed here. One of the significant considerations in this process was social equity and access, particularly access to the waterfront, access to public transportation and emergency access. And we set out and I think achieved our goal of maintaining and really improving access in a lot of places, both emergency access as well as access to the harbor walk and to public open spaces, especially along the waterfront, accessible routes to the water and to various transportation opportunities. And to put it into numbers, this plan creates over 20, we're talking about protecting from flooding, and that means real changes to the harbor walk, in a lot of cases, raising the ground. And we've managed to do that while also making things better, we think. We're creating 21,000 square feet of new harbor walk. We're creating over 90,000 square feet of new publicly accessible open space. And we're adding over 2,000 linear feet of docks where water transportation and marinas and water access is so important to the Wharf district. And that's at the district as a whole, as well as at each. We've identified 6 different projects within the district. And even at every single one of those projects, we're making sure to at least maintain, if not increase, each one of those metrics. As for the resiliency plan itself, so this is, there we go. This is a plan of the existing conditions of the Wharf district. I mentioned we've broken down the district into 6 projects. We call those sub-district projects, just to make things a little bit more easy to construct, as well as allow phasing so that we can address the most at-risk places initially and move on to the places that are less at risk as needed as time goes on. So we've broken this down into 6 different projects with a goal of protecting against this outcome. And this is the plan we proposed. So I'll walk through this here a little bit. What we're seeing on the screen here, if we start over in the 4-point channel at the left side and work our way to the right, all of those orange lines along the waterfront, the harbor walk, we are proposing to raise up the harbor walk from its current elevation to a higher elevation so that the harbor walk itself can serve as a flood protection system. In many cases, raising or rebuilding seawalls to provide that protection. This is up at the surface. Below ground, we're going down in most cases 30 feet or so down into the mud to also also reduce the flow of that water through the ground and underneath the systems. Where a lot of the flooding we have seen in the district, has been through below ground flood pathways. So we're raising up that harbor walk, in most cases where it's located today, all the way through to Rose Wharf. And then we are in green in the middle there from Rose Wharf to Harbor Towers. We are creating we're putting a new seawall in outboard of the existing seawall at that location, creating new publicly accessible open spaces, creating what we hope is a less private feeling experience along the harbor walk that makes people feel like they're welcome in those spaces. While also, and I'll touch on this in a little bit, using this particular location underneath these new areas for significant stormwater storage for rainfall. I'll talk about that more in a little more detail later. But you can see throughout those areas I've just mentioned, lots and lots of docks. Now today, there's lots of docks out there. In all of these places, we are proposing new floating breakwaters, which will look a lot like the docks that are there, but they're a bit more robust. Generally, it's like a floating concrete type structure. There's different designs for them, but that will help knock the waves down so that we don't need to go as high on the land. So where we generally have 2 to 4 foot waves in a lot of places in the harbor, these will take that wave height down probably to the 6-inch range or so. And we don't need to, we can take that difference off of the flood protection system on the land.
So those breakwaters would not be used to some vessels, would they?
So I'm just going to repeat the question because I'm not sure if folks on the call can hear since my microphone's in front of me. Suzanne has asked if those breakwaters would be used as docks. And yes, they would be. So all of these they're breakwaters, but they look like docks. We've got some down in the Seaport District and other places around Boston. And a lot of folks wouldn't know the difference at first. So they will have mooring for vessels, absolutely. Just to be clear, from what we're seeing on the screen here, we have not done a wave or a wind study to identify the best locations for these breakwaters at this point. That's a bigger level of effort than what we're able to do here. So we are really noting that these need to be part of the solution, and we're including a price at this point as a placeholder for getting those in. But there needs to be more study on the best orientation and location of those breakwaters. As we come down past Harbor Towers over towards Harbor Barrage, we've got a living shoreline and new steps down to the water for people to come down and experience the water. Then we continue the elevated harbor walks around Central Wharf at the aquarium. And you'll see at the end of Central Wharf, new flood protection islands and floating wetlands. These are, like the breakwaters, a more natural solution to break down those wave heights while also creating significant ecosystem benefits. And potentially creating opportunities for educational benefits, particularly being right there at the aquarium, allowing for programs for people to really understand and learn about the marine ecosystem. As we come back around towards 255 State, again, elevated harbor walks, and still throughout the whole area, maintaining access down, up to this elevated harbor walk, as well as back down to those docks, wherever we have access points today, down to those docks, we're maintaining those. And then keeping that elevated harbor walk around Long Wharf and back over towards Christopher Columbus Park. And in the park there, the green space is, again, elevated land. So we're elevating some of the land in the park to take advantage of the natural high point, that hill there, and use that to our advantage, while also installing a new living shoreline along the water's edge there, again, to break down the waves and create some ecosystem benefits. I'll walk through this in a little more detail. We've got some good cross sections that will help show what this will feel like in a moment. So let me talk through a little bit more here. I do want to highlight at this point, it wasn't just about a design. A big part of this process was the engagement process, where we had a number of workshops with various stakeholders in the district, in particular, every property owner where we have private property or public property where we need to install these flood protection systems, and those properties that need to be significantly modified in some cases to protect our district. We met with each of them, had a series of workshops, and I'm very proud to say we've been able to gain the support of every single waterfront property owner end to end of the district for this solution. So not just a design effort, but a big community engagement effort, and that really came with from a lot of you all, being part of this process and having a common goal and coming together around how to get this done as a community. So that's something I think to be very proud of here. And also, this plan is not just a single waterfront solution. So that plan I just walked through on that beautiful image that our Halverson friends produced, along the waterfront, is shown here just as a gray line for reference along the waterfront. We're also proposing a number of legs, if you will, flood protection systems that stretch back away from the waterfront system to natural high points in the district. And what this will do, those are represented by these green lines on the screen here. So what each of those legs do as they come back in is create 3 resilience zones. So each of these 3 zones can be built independently of the adjacent districts, and they will be protected on day 1. So we don't need to wait for the entire city to come online. We don't need to wait, the North Resilience Zone that includes, Christopher Columbus Park down to Harbor Towers, that can be built initially, being one of the most at-risk part of the district, already experiencing flooding. We can build those little legs coming back into some high points there, and that area will be protected. And then as the other zones come on, we start adding additional layers of resiliency. So that at that point, those legs will act as a redundant line of protection so that if there's a single point of failure anywhere, we don't have widespread flooding throughout the district. The plan that's proposed also provides a number of community benefits. This is an example cross-section at Harbor Towers that I think illustrates some of the opportunities that we've identified. So in addition to protecting from storm surge flooding, we're identifying a number of opportunities for new shade trees and shade structures to deal with a lot of the heat issues that are out here. We're identifying extensive new stormwater infrastructure to deal with the rainfall that would fall on the dry side of these systems. So new storage tanks and pump systems. Lots of new public waterfront open space throughout the district. Really maintaining accessible harbor walks, identifying ecosystem opportunities. And a lot of these cases, our ecosystem opportunities aren't necessarily green in terms of green vegetation, but there are a lot of things we can do to soften that edge and not just have a vertical wall that has no ecosystem benefits or results in significant wave height. We can provide, riprap and other solutions, revetments along the edge there to soften those up and create opportunities for things like filter feeders and so on. And then, of course, one of the things that makes the Wharf District is the wharfs, it's the operating waterfront, it's the docks, it's the marinas, so really maintaining water transportation throughout. And this next image just puts a bunch of little stickers around the Wharf District where we've identified many of these additional benefits that go beyond flood protection. So we're identifying opportunities for water recreation and transportation, views from the water that don't exist today, new improved access to the harbor walk in many, many places, vegetation and shade structures and ecosystem benefits. Again, at this stage, we're really identifying opportunities. This is a concept design we've done here, and there needs to be more study and more conversation with the community about what the right solutions are. But what we've done here is just identify those opportunities so we can really start having a meaningful conversation about how this plays out as designs advance. One of the other benefits I mentioned, stormwater. As I mentioned, yes, this is addressing storm surge events. It's addressing groundwater in terms of those deep cutoff walls that we're putting into a lot of places. We're also putting in a lot of under drain systems to manage groundwater to a safe level. We're also addressing rainfall. When we have a storm surge event and those water levels in the harbor are high, they're going to prevent water from Boston Water and Sewers systems, their storm pipes, from discharging the rainfall that's coming down during a storm from getting out to the harbor. That can cause flooding on the dry side of our flood protection system. This map in blue shows our catchment area, the area where when rain falls, that all collects. It's a very large area. When we have a very heavy rainfall event, that water needs to go somewhere. There's another catchment area there shown in purple, a smaller one down in the 4-point channel. So our solution to that was to identify extensive opportunities for stormwater storage systems and pumping systems. So everything blue on this screen represents a storage tank or storage system that we are proposing as part of this plan. So I mentioned, at Rose Wharf and Harbor Towers, we're going a little outboard there. One of the reasons for that, we have a real low point in our district, just adjacent to that area, particularly over by 255 State Street, where it's very densely developed. There's a lot of water transportation, not much opportunity there specifically for storing water. But we can bring that water with new drainage pipes to these north storage systems at Harbor Towers, as well as a tank at the Central Plaza area in front of the aquarium, over under Rose Wharf, and allow that rainwater to have a place to go to be managed safely. We'll have the storage systems there, and Harbor Towers is supportive of a pump station on their property to manage the water levels in those tanks. Additionally, we are including a tank over at Christo Columbus Park that's already being proposed by Boston Water and Sewer, so really just adopting their plan there. And we've identified additional storage through the southern areas of the district as well, and pump stations at Christopher Columbus Park and down in the Fort Point Channel and at Northern Avenue. Matthew, I think you raised your hand.
Well, this helps to address a concern that a few folks have brought up to me after they looked at the plan, and that is the concern that I hate to use the word barrier, but the elevated harbor walk, the concern that it could become that on the dry side of that, it become sort of a bathtub in a way if rainwater collects and is not able to escape out of that barrier. And I think this helps to address that concern, but that's one of the questions that has been brought to me as people look at this.
Yeah. So for those folks on the phone, Matthew Murphy here has noted that one of the comments he's heard a bit from some folks is a concern that as we raise the harbor walk, as we raise that water's edge to protect against storm surge, we may end up with a bathtub full of rainwater behind it. And this absolutely does address that issue. That is the point of these storage systems, that we don't have a full bathtub of water that we've now built. And really it's a solution that generally requires both storage and pumping. And that's what we've proposed. Generally, the more storage you have, the less pumping you need. So we've really tried to identify as many areas as we could to add storage. But we're also acknowledging that, yes, there may need to be a few pumps here to manage those levels safely. The next few slides, so we're coming up on the end of the presentation here. These are really some of the graphical images that just go through that plan I've already talked about, and then some cross sections. So we're going to start over at Christopher Columbus Park at the north side and work our way through the district. As I mentioned, we're raising up some of the ground in the park area to act as a flood protection system. We have our living shoreline there. We're raising up the harbor walk, all the way around Long Wharf. I think it's very important to note, BPDA is currently doing their own study at Long Wharf for flood protection, and they're going to come to their own conclusions about the best solution there. We are working with their team. They're very much engaged in this process, as they have been from day one. But they're currently doing their own study here that will have significant community engagement as they work through the designs for Long Wharf. But we felt it was important to include this area in our design so that we can really talk about the context and how all these different parcels interface and come together in a contiguous flood protection system for the district. Similarly, Boston Parks and Rec Department is planning on doing a new project at Christopher Columbus Park that will include resiliency components. As we come down around Long Wharf, as I mentioned, it's really elevated harbor walks around the rest of this part of the area, over towards the garage there, but we'll talk about Central Wharf on the next just a bit. We just have an image here showing the existing conditions at Long Wharf. And on the next slide, the proposed conditions. So you can see here what I'm referring to as we elevate that harbor walk up. So it creates a new gradual transition from that lower elevation to a higher elevation with opportunities for vegetation and hopefully a very inviting and welcoming environment for folks. So we're not cutting people off from the water, we're welcoming them to it while protecting the district from flooding. And in the Central Wharf area, really coming down in front of 255 State and the aquarium, as I mentioned, those elevated harbor walks and flood protection islands. So this is what the area in front of 255 State looks like today and tomorrow. Again, similar architectural language, elevated harbor walk and a transition zone with vegetation. I will note here, we are narrowing Old Atlantic Avenue here down to 21 feet. It's about 30 feet today. So we still have two-way traffic here, but we are relocating some of the layover spaces from here over by the Aquarium T Station and Atlantic Ave, because we really do need to pick up that space that we need for this gentle transition. If we don't take out that 10 or so feet of that roadway, we end up with a hard wall here and a real visual disruption for people and what we would refer to as a barrier in a lot of ways. And we're really trying to avoid that and acknowledging that we can't go out in the water without impacting the very important water transportation that's so crucial to so many folks here at this particular location. So we look at the aquarium today and in the future. So this is the flood protection island I was referring to, with opportunities for wetlands and ecosystem benefits throughout. As we move down to Harbor Towers, again, elevated harbor walk, and then that new publicly accessible open space in front of the towers. So first we'll look just in front of the garage here. This is the harbor walk today. You can see we step down to get to the water today. We'll be coming up to get to the water tomorrow. I will note all of these access points, these are all designed. We've looked at the layout, the geometries out here, and really made sure that these are truly accessible. Everything's less than 5%. None of these are ramps. These are really walkways to get up to the harbor walk and then make your way back down. Again, you can see that living shoreline as well as in the background places for people to get down and interface with the water itself. Harbor Towers today, again, a lower harbor walk being raised up and expanded out so that we can create the space for those underground storage tanks. And at Rose Wharf, again, we've built that new seawall out in front of those two wharf buildings on the right side of the image, and really maintained a lot of visually what it looks like over in Rose Wharf for the rest of the property. So this is today, and then again that harbor walk gets raised up basically close to the first floor elevation of the building. Where today you would step down a little bit to get to the harbor walk. It'll be pretty flush there tomorrow. And again, creating lots of storage for rainwater storage. And the central area of Rose Wharf today, again, stepping down to the harbor walk, gets flattened out, and we have a new flood protection wall along the edge there, while maintaining a lot of that water activation that happens today. So move down to Northern Avenue, elevated harbor walk, just throughout this district, this project area. So this is what the James Hook site looks like today with the burnt out docks here. We are including rebuilding that area so that the harbor walk becomes accessible again, providing a new pedestrian connection in terms of a small bridge from the Seaport Boulevard bridge there, the Moakley Bridge, over to the harbor walk. As well as removing those stairs that are in front of the Coast Guard building today, and removing that barrier to access to the harbor walk with a flush walkway throughout the area.
Can I ask you a question? That main Leventhal site that they will not consider building a building on the site? Doesn't that prevent the building from being?
So Joanna's asked if this prevents the James Hook site from having a building constructed at that area. This plan is really separate from any individual proposals to build new towers or buildings in the area. This can be done without that. The James Hook Co group is on board with this plan. So we would envision, a harbor walk through this area. I don't see it precluding their ability to put a tower in there someday.
Yeah, no, this is in fact consistent in terms of the harbor walk with what they had proposed for that building. Whether the building goes ahead or not, they would never put a building footprint in this area. They would not be permitted to, and they didn't intend to. So this is independent of that.
Then our last project area, the Fort Point Channel, again, an elevated harbor walk here. I will note today the harbor walk goes through Independence Wharf's building. It has relatively low head height through that area. And for a few reasons, for that reason, as well as to address some of the structural considerations at this particular area, we are pushing the harbor walk outboard of that building, which will create better views of the water from there and probably a more accessible harbor walk, but that's necessary from an engineering perspective as well as just being a general benefit there. Otherwise, we're really hugging the existing line of the harbor walk through this property. But I will note that each of the property owners from Rose Wharf down to right on down through the 4-Point Channel, all the properties there independently noted that the proposal put out by Boston Water and Sewer, shown on the screen here, to convert Northern Avenue Bridge to a storm surge barrier is preferable and really should be studied, continue to be studied in lieu of the flood protection systems that we're showing for the 4-Point Channel properties, where this would address the storm surge. Those buildings would still need some minor levels of protection at the buildings themselves, but they're all above the tidal elevations. So really a storm surge barrier here would really address that issue.
And it is our understanding that the city and the Corps of Engineers are progressing to study this currently.
That's right, yes. So we pulled together, that's really it for the plan. I've only got a couple more slides here and then we'll open up the conversation. I won't go through this in detail, but if anyone wants me to come back to it, let me know. We have a timeline where we are recommending when each of these projects come online based on when they are at risk of flooding. I will note that we are recommending that inland properties, not just the waterfront properties, but the inland properties as well, do protect themselves from flooding. So, there are some individual properties at the waterfront that need to take action before a district-wide system is proposed, and that's indicated on this plan. But even when this comes in, there's a lot of waterfront properties that we strongly recommend and the BPDA recommends provide protection systems at their own buildings as a second layer of protection, in addition to what we're proposing at the waterfront. We have identified costs for the project. We're generally looking here at, I'm sure everybody's eyes will zoom into that total of $877 million for the entire project. That includes near-term, mid-term, and long-term costs. I'll note this is a construction cost. If you've been following the news and seen a few articles out recently, some of them will quote this number, some will I think, quote a $1.2 billion number. That $1.2 billion is really looking at the construction costs plus design costs plus 50 years of operations and maintenance costs. So if you're seeing different numbers, that's why. This is really looking at construction costs. And we break it out by phasing as well as by each of those 6 sub-district projects. And just to put things in perspective, we've looked at a few comparable projects. These are comparable projects that are currently in construction or about to start construction, mostly in the New York City area, as they've been progressing things, to construction now at scale. And we are seeing that per linear foot of coastline protected, we're in the same ballpark in that 110K-ish range. And then, as Mark noted, this project protects against $3.9 billion in damage from flooding over that 50-year time period. So when we look at the cost of the project, the all-in cost, of $1.2 billion, we compare it to those losses that we're protecting against. We have a very positive, what we call benefit cost ratio, which is a good justification for why this project really should move forward. We've identified some funding opportunities, so just different programs that are available for funding.
Norm has raised his hand.
Jump on in, Norm.
Hi, Derek. As usual, great presentation and fantastic work that you folks have done. 2 questions come to mind, or one actual statement. On the cost-benefit analysis, I think as we go forward, we need to include another line there, because doing what is proposed to the Harbor Walk will make the Harbor Walk more attractive for tourists and for locals, and it will bring business in. And the net positive benefit of additional revenues that come in should be part of the cost-benefit equation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. And the second thing is more of a question. We frequently get the question of views of the water from a little bit inland of this new harbor walk, and how much, that will be cut off. I think it might be worthwhile just mentioning to folks about how your design has gradual increases in elevation as you approach the harbor walk and you start seeing the water well before you're at the edge.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are excellent points, Storm. Thank you.
I think the other part of this design, and you can see it best from the renderings, is that our design team has worked very diligently to make sure that we're not putting up any walls. There's been a lot of criticism of some other plans that have been done elsewhere in the country where I think it's been done less sensitively. And as Matthew said, we don't like to use the word barrier, and we certainly don't want to be looking at a barrier anywhere here. So the idea of creating a very gradual elevation change over a distance, instead of having, a concrete or solid wall of some kind, is an important component to how this has been studied.
Hey, Mark, this is Joe Christo. I'm in the room here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So I want to build off that question. Because I'm sure you last week, Mark, saw the New York Times article.
Yep.
The plan to save New York from the next Sandy will ruin the waterfront. Doesn't happen, right?
Yep.
And Derek, this is going to be a bit of a tough one, but I think it'll be helpful, right? So that article is critiquing the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers plan for Greater New York. And it includes 50 miles of 12 to 20 foot walls. And this article shows what the views look like with those walls in the way. And the article kind of frames the debate there as a choice between an outer harbor barrier, right, or these walls. Whereas I work at the Stone Living Lab, acknowledges there's an in between there, and your plan embraces that. Why were you able to go to either of these two extremes? And why were you able to embrace this in between? Were there certain factors with the waterfront here? Was it just because you guys are brilliant?
It must be that. It must be that, Joe. Yes, right. Well, so I, first of all, I'd like to say something about that article. Those renderings were not done by the Corps of Engineers. They were done by a proponent, by someone who was trying to make a point that substantiated their position, and they hired somebody to do renderings that were not accurate. And they were not accurate in a number of ways. Now, what it is that the Corps has actually proposed and where those walls were supposed to be, we don't know, and they don't know either, because if so, they just invented that. So here's the other part of this thing that I think is important to keep in mind. What the Corps has said is there, and so have we. There is an elevation that you need to achieve, right, to be able to keep Boston from flooding. But what you do on the dry side and what you do on the wet side of that elevation is a very important conversation to have with the public. So, we love the idea of having a living shoreline or any of these other kinds of natural connections from the land to the water on the water side. There are some situations where, you have a wharf and you have docks, and it's less, works less well to be able to do that. But to the extent that you can have that, you can have a wall behind it and conceal that wall completely in a very gradual separation between one part of the and the next. And frankly, we don't. There's no indication in our renderings as to whether there might be a wall underneath part of this or not. So I think that one of the things that's really important to do is to understand the difference between an engineering study and a design of the public realm, and what's fact and what's making a point by using fake renderings. And we have done a very, very careful job about our renderings being accurate, both from a technical and from a design point of view.
So Mark, that's the exact reason why I asked the question, because Derek, Mark, team have done such an amazing job of the technical side of this, of the engagement side of this, and also on the communication side. And the visuals are really fantastic in a way that, like Mark said, this article didn't do the best job, right? But I think as you continue to do the communication piece, explaining to people why we're not setting up this false debate between an outer harbor barrier and a 12-foot wall along the shoreline, and why we're able to achieve this really beautifully designed and integrated work that you've done, I think that's just important. Continue to express to people how and why you've been able to achieve that.
Couldn't agree with you more. And so you are all spokespeople for this project, and you know, help us get the word out, help us engage more people in the conversation. I can't speak to the idea of an outer harbor concept. I think that has been fully vetted and proven technically infeasible. But I personally have not been involved in that part of it. But we do need to continue to get the word out and get good constructive feedback about what we've done and to improve what we've done if we can.
One thing I'll note about the process that I think has been unique here, where this was led by the Wharf District Council as a nonprofit representing the community, is it started with the community. It started with, you know, what are the community's preferences and priorities, and looking at all that's come to date that laid that out, and then starting with those strategies that we felt would have community buy-in. Whereas, you know, some of the stuff in New York, you know, they had Hurricane Sandy, and they very quickly got out a plan that said, how do we stop that? And they really moved remarkably quickly given what had happened. But you know, that part of this project, I think, is what I would love to see expand out, and is a really great story here. The community coming together with a common goal and finding a solution that is, you know, starting and centering the community itself. And I think we pick up with solutions like this in that kind of framework.
So we attended a meeting that was hosted by the city and the Corps of Engineers. And the Corps of Engineers, perhaps everybody knows this already, I apologize because I'm repeating this, but the Corps of Engineers has started the process of putting together a plan for a coastal resilience solution for the city of Boston, which they intend to take to Congress for funding by 2026. The first step in their process, they have said, is to get the community engaged in a conversation about, as Derek said, about what it is that we prefer. It is our hope that this project, this effort that we have just been through, will be the basis for the Corps of Engineers' first stage of community involvement, and that by taking this step, it will allow us, and hopefully the rest of Boston shortly thereafter, to be among the first people to be standing in line for federal funding through the Corps of Engineers to get this project funded and then final design and implementation underway. So it's a really important part of the first step in bringing this to fruition, and they have said that this is the kind of thing that they're hoping will assist them in that process.
I want to jump on to the last, I think, 3 slides here so I can get off the numbers.
Right.
And we can certainly open it up to more conversation, but just the last things here, because I do think it's quite important. I mentioned we are recommending all property owners who may be impacted by flooding, not just along the waterfront, including them, but also the inland property owners, look to continue to protect their properties. We have created a set of building level resiliency guidelines, which really build on what the city has already done with their resiliency guidelines, and just try to strip it down. So we have a relatively short checklist that will just, we think, be informative of what process folks need to go through in terms of both how to identify if they're at risk of flooding, and then what steps to go to take next. So it's, I think, just a 7-ish point checklist there. And, you know, more at the building level, just talks through some different types of strategies and considerations for protecting individual buildings. So we do have that as a resource for all folks in the district. And with that, I will wrap it up here. So I will, that's not what I want to do. I want to
keep your mic open, because I think you are the mic.
Yep, not a problem there, and happy to take any other questions. I don't know where we're at on the on timing here at the moment, but
while people are thinking about the questions, I would share the fact that Derek is making a number of these presentations on our behalf to a whole variety of other agencies and entities and neighbors and interested parties. And I think you already presented to the ULI group. Did you already, Derek?
Yeah, we presented at ULI's Northeast Resilient Cities Summit down in Falmouth a week or two ago. We've had a number of conversations with Boston Harbor Now. We're presenting at Boston Harbor Now's Public Use Forum. I probably get the name of that a little bit off. I think it's on the 28th in the morning. And yeah, we've got a few other presentations coming up as well.
Yeah, and we're trying to get to all of the electeds, and I know that at both the the local and the state and the federal levels. So anybody who has thoughts about who else would find this to be interesting or useful, please let Suzanne know so that she can share that with the committee. And whether this is a story about the climate resilience solution that our group has come up with, or whether it's a story about a process where a community gets together and comes up with a consensus solution. I think there are a couple of really, really great lessons to be learned from what's happened here. And I just can't say enough about Derek and his whole team and what a great and thorough job I think they've done. So, and Fernando, has the Conservation Committee had any input yet?
No, I can respond to that. We have not taken this to regulatory agencies as of yet. We have met with BPDA, we've met with folks in the mayor's office, we've met with the Greenway Conservancy, Public Works Department, MBTA, and a few of those folks that are kind of stakeholders here in the district, but not the regulatory agencies as of yet. We have done a regulatory analysis that BHB, I think, did a fantastic job on. Stephanie, feel free to jump in if you like, but it did go through the regulatory side of this, and generally the conclusion is, what we're finding here is that nothing we are proposing is prohibited by current regulations. And I know that might, for folks who deal with a lot of the regulatory agencies, obviously there are hurdles. That doesn't mean it's an easy path to implementation, but there is a regulatory path forward to get this done.
And Kelly, thank you for posting the link to the public forum. Do you want to say anything about that?
Sorry, just getting to unmute myself.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the Harbor Use Public Forum will probably be relatively similar to what Derek has already shown. So if you have just seen what Derek has shown and you feel comfortable with that information, this is maybe going to be a repeat of that. But if you want a second look and you want another opportunity to potentially talk about this, the Harbor Use Public Forum is a great thing. We also do other topics as well, but this one will probably be the most relevant to this group.
Sure. And share it with other people, right? It's an open invitation. Is that right, Kelly?
Yes. Please share it amongst anyone who you think would be interested in this topic.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
Can I just add something? And that is all of the information that we have had here today, plus additional backup information, is all on the website. So you get the report. We don't have, your presentation yet, but that's fine. But we've got the final report, we've got the executive summary, plus the backup information, which is also there. The basis of design report, the evaluation criteria. So I think in addition to all that Derek is doing and everyone else is doing, we are putting the information on the website so that people, sort of as a library almost, so people have access to this information.
Yep.
I will note, so there's this presentation that we're giving today that really goes through the plan. At the ULI conference, we also met recently and presented to the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance. We gave a very different presentation to those groups. That's much more about the process. We can, if anybody is interested in, the framework that the Wharf District Council created to drive this project, for the decision-making that went into it, the plans that we built on from the city to get to where we're at today, as well as all the tools and lessons learned through this process that other neighborhoods can take on. We've got a separate slide deck that dives deeper into those things, which we're also very happy to share.
Are there other questions? Any other questions from folks on the Zoom or in the room? Comments? Mark, you see anybody in the chat?
I don't. We we're getting a lot of nice words from folks, which we appreciate. Kathryn Mohn Wooters says it's too bad there aren't more people, more attendees. Yeah, but I feel like we're getting the word out, and we need to just keep at it. So it's a long process. We're going to be at this long after I'm gone. So
yeah. So before we move on, we want to back up just a moment. Thank you, Derek, very much. Really excellent work, and having you walk through it really helps me as someone who is very technically minded, but really very well. Thank you. So, and we do have Leslie Hawkins here from Trade Restaurant. Leslie, are you on the call on Zoom?
Yes, I am. And I'm sorry for the confusion regarding scheduling. Do we still have just a couple quick minutes?
Sure. So I think Suzanne sort of encapsulated the basic request that you have.
Right. The little notes that are on the agenda, I just read to the group. So you can take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you, Suzanne. And as always, appreciate everyone's time. So this is simply a request to allow for a disc jockey at the established location at Trade. And when I say disc jockey, under Boston's regulations, anything other than background music being controlled by a device, or, and this group obviously knows this, or televisions constitutes live entertainment. So this is just, we've used a series of special one days to have an individual controlling the music, to control the ambiance. This is not a disc jockey in the sense of patrons coming up and requesting music or someone speaking into a microphone. This is simply to kind of administratively button up the way they've been operating, using someone at the front area at a designated site to control the music from their computer so that they can better control the ambiance. That simply qualifies as a disc jockey. I know we live in, listen, I was on the board for 5 years, so people laugh at me all the time, and now clients get to laugh at me, but that is, those are the requirements. We're not moving any furniture around. We're not rearranging anything. This is not to bring in different events than what have been provided at this establishment. Obviously, should there be anything that requires real live entertainment, such as musicians or singers or dancing by patrons, that would all require a special one-day license. So this is essentially just administratively, because when you go through the special one-day process, you have to have it signed by the police captain, and then it has to be stamped by the city. We're just looking to button it up. And I apologize, Eric, Papa Christos would have been here, but for kind of some scheduling conflicts and some travel conflicts, we held an abutters meeting sponsored by the mayor's office. I will not speak for them, but no one attended. So I will let Ciara speak to that. We also reached out to the elected officials. We're just being very transparent. This is more of an administrative request, but we obviously wanted to come and present to the Wharf District Council, just because once you see live entertainment, it triggers a lot of reaction. So that is what we're proposing. Again, it's not disc jockey in the sense that most people think of. It's more just for ambiance and controlling the music.
Great.
And happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, this is Matthew. Hi there. A question. So the disc jockey providing this sort of ambient music, they are physically present and visible to patrons. So it's hard to imagine a situation where there's this physical disc jockey where people don't feel free to go and request things. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that. I don't know, but I guess I'm a little confused about the difference between having someone control the ambient music behind the scenes, changing the vibe, and having it done by someone who's physically present in the room. What is the necessity behind it?
Absolutely. So when we say physically present, it will be a laptop at the entry point, right, where all the reservations are taken. I suppose just like in any establishment, someone could come up and request a particular song, but there's no dedicated interaction between the disc jockey and patrons. There's not a microphone where they're speaking into it. There's no sort of kind of back and forth as you would kind of expect in a nightclub situation. And I think more than anything, the most important piece is that there's no removal of tables, no rearranging of tables. This is still a restaurant. This just is kind of adhering to the rules so that they feel they have the flexibility if they want an individual sitting there, and it most likely will not be dedicated all the time, but controlling the music. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, and there's a question also. This is only for music inside. There's no outside music. Is that correct?
Correct. Very good question.
Leslie, and just one other question. Do I understand that are you planning on this like for every night, or is this just for your sort of special kind of dinners and things that you do occasionally?
This would be every night. And again, it just provides flexibility. Again, okay. If there is actual kind of more traditional live entertainment, that will require a special one day that would require the police captain sign off. This is really just for ambiance purposes. And just as currently we're happy to continually provide the neighborhood association, the Wharf District Council, a list of any of our special events to the extent that they're happening, we're happy to continue doing that.
Great. Thanks, Leslie.
Absolutely.
Leslie, Suzanne, the other thing I wanted to add regarding outside music, you cannot put speakers for outside music unless you come before the neighborhood council, and then you would go to the board. Is that correct?
So for background music outdoors, the city's position, because even if it's background music, it's technically non-live, but the city does require that you come before the council. It does require that you go through a community process. So it's not, if you were going with just your typical, I'm having my 3 TVs and my background music inside, that would be administratively approved. Anything outside, the city does require that you go through a community process.
Thank you.
And we're obviously not, we're not proposing that at this time, nor do we have any plans to right now.
You're making a lot of people happy.
Are there any other questions? Any other questions? Well, Leslie, thank you for coming and giving us more information about this, and something that we'll vote on in executive session.
Yes.
Greatly appreciated it. And obviously we will provide a copy of the application we filed just to, demonstrate that this is what we're requesting before any sort of a hearing before the board. And we appreciate it, the consideration. And I hope next time I get to be in person. I will be very happy to not do these Zoom meetings anymore.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, so we now move on to just a few neighborhood updates before we finish up.
Which are really short updates because we have no additional information.
That's sure.
State Street, we're still negotiating, working with the city councilors regarding the stopping the city from permanently making State Street a one traffic lane, one bike lane. And we submitted alternative proposals and letters, and the building owners and merchants on State Street between Atlantic Ave and Congress Street themselves have been working with us, but also together in order to prevent the street from becoming 2 lanes permanently. So that's where we stand right now. I think we're the only neighborhood in the city that has been able to stop a permanent one bike lane, one traffic lane situation from happening.
And at the very least, I'm reminded of a discussion that they just had about one of the Supreme Court cases where, it's not yet a complete victory, but just to be able to stop it at this point is a victory of sorts. It is not done yet. It is not a permanent plan. It is still considered a pilot program. And so we feel there's still an opportunity to take an aggressive stance against this project and to provide some positive alternatives.
And this information that Nancy is talking about is also on the website. So if anyone wants to get a refresher on their proposal and our alternative proposals, then you'll find them on the website, and we will keep you posted with respect to our discussions with the city and the city councilors. We have not really been able to have a subsequent meeting with the chief of streets, although the city council president has proposed it. He has not been able to accept it. It's been busy.
And just one other thing related to this, Suzanne, is, and maybe this was related in a previous meeting, but there has also been announced a plan for bike lanes on Milk Street, running from all the way, I think, from Washington all the way down to Service Road. And that is separate but related to the objections that we're raising to the State Street project. So that will continue to be in discussion. All right, and then
the next item would be the concerns that we have over the maintenance of the Long Wharf area and the Central Wharf Plaza area with the increase in homelessness on Long Wharf, and also the trash and the no spring cleaning on Central Wharf. Now I know the aquarium does a fabulous job, and the garage too, are maintaining at the Central Wharf property, but the problem is they haven't done any spring cleaning. We did write a letter to them. They're supposed to get back to us they really haven't given us an answer, so we're still working on that. And that's really the only update that I have. I know Joanne Hayes-Rhymes, president of Wharf District, Friends of Christopher Columbus Park is on the Zoom, and I don't know, Joanne, do you have anything you want to update for the Friends?
Thanks, Suzanne. Well, July 8th, we have our event for kids in the park, which we're also working with the Tea Party Museum, because this is their, correct me if I'm wrong, the 250th anniversary in December. So they're sending some people over to help open our event. And I hope everybody on this Zoom call has been to the Tea Party Museum and brought lots of visitors to it, because it's just wonderful. So, but that's July 8th, and our movies start the next week, our Sunday night movies. So that's all on our website, and hope to see you all at the movies, and thank you everyone for your support.
I would just add one thing about Long Wharf and the number of unhoused folks who have sort of made a temporary home in that I don't know what that's called, that pavilion down there. Yes, which was redesigned for protection of the tunnel, but it has made it even sort of more welcoming for folks to hang out there. And we haven't had a lot of issues with our guests being harassed or things like that, but it is a concern that for us that we continue to just keep an eye on. And also in one self-serving statement here, there's one announcement I wanted to make on behalf of Boston Harbor City Cruises. We have a very special offer related to the beginning of school vacation, and that is that on our Provincetown ferry, if you would like to take we call our Kids to the Cape program, and all kids ride free. Children under 12 ride free with an accompanied adult, of course. And that is June 22nd to 29. There's no coupon that's necessary. We've just made all kids free for that first week of school vacation, and we're hoping that families who are finally free for the summer can just take a day trip to Provincetown and Cape Cod, and be happy for you to spread the word about that to all of your families who might be interested. So Kids to the Cape, June 22nd to 29.
How long is the ride?
It's about 95 minutes from harbor to harbor.
About 7 hours by car.
Any other announcements before we wrap up? Are there any impromptu announcements for anyone? Yes, Chris.
Just to skip back very quickly to the issue of State Street and Mount Street. If everyone wasn't aware, the city has recently announced they want to do exactly the same thing on Boylston Street in Back Bay, around Copley Square, Boylston Street and Berkeley Street, reducing it to one lane of traffic and one bike lane. The neighbourhood associations and the Back Bay Association are understandably up in arms about this, and they are already protesting this to the city. There was an article, WBZ had an article all about this, and they quoted and quite a few neighbourhood associations of people expressing their collective outrage about exactly the same thing, though, the complete lack of process. So maybe it's worth reaching out to some of them and, stronger together, as it were, to protest the way they're doing it.
I think some solidarity across neighborhoods could be useful. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. That was Chris Crompton from Old Town Trolley who just commented.
Anybody else have anything they wanted to bring up? I mean, we really encourage folks to bring up events or information they'd like to share.
And can I just also mention, make sure everyone visits our social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. And I believe it's at Wharf District Council. Do I have that right?
Correct.
And Doug Grabell does a great job with that. But if you ever have anything that you think would be worthwhile to send to Greg, you can tag at Wharf District Council. And we're always looking for goings on in the neighborhood that we can highlight and showcase on our social media. So please participate in that as well.
We had a very successful
yes.
Greenway Volunteer Day for District Council. We almost had 30 people. Well, actually, when Doug showed up, it made 30. And it was delightful. We ended up doing the walkway and behind Trillium. So from where Trillium was and to that street. And it was just a delightful pulling of weeds. There were no aphids there. And then we went to Trillium Pizza, and there we had a terrific team of people putting it together. We're just grateful. In fact, people are looking forward to doing it again next year. And we had we had actually a lot of new folks that were there. We had a group from the Customs and also the Boston Harbor Hotel. So it was great. It was a great little event.
Well, thanks to everyone who participated in that. I was out of town, so I was able to. Here I was missed.
Yes, you were.
All right. Anyone else? Thank you so much. Thanks to Derek for a terrific presentation.
Thank you, Derek.
And welcome to our new members. And we'll see you next month. And be in touch. Oh,
do you need executive session?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm
we are going to go into executive session.
Yeah, I'm going to stop the recording now, and then voting members should stay on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.